And throughout the Caribbean, and I'm talking about the Caribbean context, throughout the Caribbean it's funded by the Australian Sport Outreach Program, as well as in some countries by UNICEF and UNESCO and some of the respective governments. The Caribbean context, I should apologize for this first statement. I threw it in there really as a response to our first speaker, Gary's abstract that suggested that participants from developing countries may find it difficult or may be unable to absorb the sophisticated and complex presentations at this Congress. And Gary, you and I can talk about this afterwards over coffee, because the beers in Malaysia too expensive. National sport policies. Now throughout the Caribbean, several of the Caribbean countries are now developing their sport policies. Some already have well-developed written policies, and throughout the Caribbean, whether they are written or not, they are now embracing the duality of high performance and sport for all. The challenge is, of course, that to some extent it's seen as competing elements, and I think this was developed in the previous presentation, so I don't need to tell you more about that, except that the challenge is that in the allocation of resources, and as we well know, high performance continues to get the bulk of the funding with the sport for all programs fighting for the scraps. It means that throughout the Caribbean, sport for all programs are not well funded by government agencies and depend heavily on non-government organizations, volunteers, and external funding. As I mentioned, the Australian Sports Commission is one of those agencies that providing the external funding. So too UK Sport and Commonwealth Games Canada. I think they've been providing funding for sport for all programs in the Caribbean for several years. This in the Caribbean, it trickles down to the school setting, where again the emphasis, and I'm speaking specifically now about the elementary school, where the emphasis is on inter-school competition, again targeting less than 3% of the school population, with 97% of the kids again left behind almost. Again, because of the limited resources, we have challenges with facilities and equipment, and throughout the Caribbean, teacher education, as in other parts of the world, tends to focus mainly on academic content. So we also have an issue of qualified physical education teachers. All of this put together results in poor quality physical education programs and in many instances, non-existent physical education programs. So we are offering a solution here, Game On, that is, as a solution, and we branded it as Game On just to give it a brand and a marketing strategy really to try to attract funding from agencies. And it was a collaborative effort of several agencies coming together. So Game On is really an intervention. It's a physical education intervention. It is by no means perfect. It's not a magic one, but I think it's contextually and realistically a very viable option within the Caribbean as it exists today. So it's I said that. And what does it focus on? It focuses on developing fundamental motor skills among children, and we do this in a fun way with lots of games that focus on developing all of the different fundamental motor skills, the running, jumping, hopping, skipping, throwing, catching, etc. It then transitions into modified sport, mini tennis, mini volleyball, mini cricket, etc. And includes an element, a strong element of life skills. And the life skills that we speak about in the Game On program are not the same as the ones presented yesterday that target high performance athletes. These are for all of the kids and focuses mainly on communication skills, on conflict resolution, on decision making. So this is in a nutshell what the Game On is. Fundamental motor skills into modified sport with a strong element of life skills. The philosophy of the Game On, and again I don't need to develop this any further, out of the same Greek Platonian stuff that we talked about, or some of the presenters talked about early on. The playground as the classroom for the lessons of life. There are 4 core principles of the Game On program, and I think this is what really makes it Game On. And the 4 principles are fun, participation, learning, and success. So these are like the pillars of Game On. This is what makes it what it is. I'll just develop these a little further. When we talk about fun, we talk about creating a child-friendly environment, and it's really up to the teachers to facilitate that environment. And I think we'd all agree that a fun environment obviously is going to engender more interest from students and a desire to participate, and hopefully develop habits of lifelong participation in sport and physical activity. The second core principle is participation, and there are two dimensions of the participation. One, mass participation, so everyone plays, and again this is a core principle of sport for all. So no one is left behind, or as the Americans like to say, no one left on there behind. The second dimension of participation is active engagement, and again throughout the conference we've heard mention of this, and that is to say, is that there? Okay. And that is to say that during the actual Game On sessions, we want our kids actively engaged, on task, rather than standing in long lines, listening to their teachers talk and talk and talk. So if you only have 40 minutes of a session is only 40 minutes long, we want them on task for as much time as possible. So those are the two elements of that principle, that core principle of participation. The third is learning. And I think yesterday again, one of the presenters talked about moving away from physical education into physical activity. And I think the significant difference between the two is that one has a strong educational element, the other one is more blonde, if you wish. So the Game On program has a strong element of learning. This is one of the core principles, and we talk about learning skills, that is the sport skills, knowledge, values, and the values and the life skills kind of connected. But what we've done for the values element is we've had partnership with the World Anti-Doping Agency. They've developed a wonderful module on the spirit of sport values. I don't know if you know it. And so we've used that as the values element for the Game On program. So all of these are learned behaviors and therefore must be taught. Again, so this is the third pillar of the Game On program, the third core principle, learning. And the fourth and final principle, success. And I think it was Stuart Biddle who in the opening remarks and the opening day talked about confidence and perceptions of confidence and competence. I think that if we provide opportunities for children to be successful, they become confident and they develop competence. So the challenge for the teachers involved is to facilitate that success. We cannot be teaching if our students are not learning. So that, and oftentimes that's what's happening. And that's the difference again between just doing activities versus teaching. And in this simple example, Michelle, the young girl, involved in a baseball activity, a modified baseball activity. But Michelle is unable to hit the tossed ball. She doesn't have the skill level to be able to hit the tossed ball. So the teacher's responsibility is to modify that task to help her to be successful. So she hits the ball off a tee, off a batting tee. It's the same movement principles involved, the same grip and the stance, the recoil action, the contact and follow through as if she were hitting a pitch ball. So we are not interfering with the integrity of the skill, but we are modifying it to ensure that she's successful. And if she's successful, she'll be motivated to continue learning, and I'm sure to improve her skill level. So those are the four core principles of the Game On program. And the process, a simple process, and this is how we've been doing it throughout the Caribbean region. We start with, and I should say that we've learned this the hard way because this is not how we started. We start by getting a commitment from the respective governments so that they are required to sign an MOU before we move forward. And in that MOU, we agree as the implementing, the coordinating agency to provide A, B, and C, and the government, they will provide X, Y, and Z. And that way they are bought into the program and they make a commitment for the sustainability of it, the S word. Then we engage in a simple teacher training program. It's really just a 3-day workshop to introduce the teachers to the core concepts of the Game On program and to help them in a simple way. And I mentioned that in the abstract. The whole idea is that this is not rocket science. It's an intervention to treat with a critical problem. And so the 3-day workshop gives them easy tools to deliver the program. We provide them with a teacher manual that outlines activities that they can do to develop the fundamental motor skills and the modified sport. It includes as well those key teaching points, as well as the life skills that I talked about. We provide each of the participating schools with the necessary equipment. It's a game-on kit that has all of the things for the delivery of the program. And finally, there's a monitoring and evaluation element. And just a quick thing on the M&E. It's divided up into 2 dimensions, if you wish. And this was not originally included. This was one of the missing areas. We were trying to just get the program going, and we've subsequently included this. And the skills challenge is done at 5 different levels, and of course that measures the skill level of the kids throughout the program. And it's done in a festival setting, so that at the end of the school term, kids actually participate in a skills challenge, and at each of the different stations, they do different skills. And as I said, at 5 different levels. So throwing to targets, for example, targets from different distances, large targets, small targets, etc. The other element of the evaluation is a qualitative approach, a qualitative methodology developed by, I remember it in time. It's called the most significant change. And essentially what it is it collects narratives, stories from the children about the changes in their own lives since participating in the program. And this, of course, is to help us to determine if we realize those outcomes in the values area and the life skills area. And for the most significant change at the lowest level, kids draw pictures, and then some tell stories, we capture it on videotape, some write stories, and out of those stories we get domains coming out, themes, which give us an idea of the most significant changes in the lives of the kids participating in the program. Just a quick snapshot of the countries that we've been working in: Angola, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Tobago, and Trinidad. Trinidad and Tobago, of course, being one nation, but 2 separate islands. So we've trained 169 persons thus far, and we've had just under 10,000 kids participating in the program, and this is the period January to November. That should be 07, correct, 2007. This is a quick snapshot, just some pages that I pulled out from the manual to give you an idea of what it is, and I mentioned a little bit about that already. And finally, this is the advertisement. I want to welcome all of you to consider traveling to the beautiful Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago in May 2009 for the inaugural ISPA-SD Caribbean Regional Conference, or Congress. For those of you who are not aware, ISPA-SD is the International Council for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, Sport and Dance. Prior to June of this year, there were 7 regions, and the Caribbean was tagged on to North America, so it was North America and the Caribbean. So in June at the World Congress, they approved the Caribbean as an independent region, so we are now the 8th region of ISPA-SD, and we host the inaugural Regional Caribbean Congress in Trinidad in May of 2009, so I'll see you all then. Thank you.
Put more emphasis on examination subjects. So I thank you very much for this presentation, something which I can take back and share with my colleagues. Thank you very much.